The North Yorkshire Moors is an upland area of 554 square miles, crisscrossed by numerous valleys and dales, all cut off from one another by high moors. Although the National Park, established in 1952, includes the coast, we'll be exploring the scenery, villages and historic sites that make up the rural hinterland. The only towns lie in the south of the area, at Helmsley and Pickering, and it's there we start our journey. This is Pickering Station, the southern terminus of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. 18 glorious scenic miles through the valley bottoms of the North Yorkshire Moors up to the port of Whitby. Now, the line was designed and built in 1836 by the famous Victorian railway engineer George Stephenson, he of the Rocket, of course, and the Stockton and Darlington Railway, some miles to the north of here. Now, interestingly, when the line was first built, well, there wasn't a steam engine to be seen. The coaches and the wagons were all pulled by horses. The first steam engines didn't appear until 1847. And then, of course, the line was used to carry coal, stone and passengers. Well, you can hear the noise. I think it's time to get on board and enjoy the glorious scenery of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. Until 1948, the railways in this country were operated by private companies, but then came nationalisation and the need to rationalise the network. So this particular line was axed by the infamous Dr. Beeching in 1965. But so incensed were local people that they got together to see if they couldn't keep the line open and run the occasional steam train. Well, the services were so popular that by 1973 the whole thing had to be formalised into the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. These days there are 150 employees supported by 300 volunteers, and they do everything from stoking up the boilers before the first train at 5 o'clock in the morning to damping them down again after the last train gets back at 7 o'clock at night. Well, these days this line links into the National Rail Network at Whitby. There are services every day during the spring and summer months and at weekends during the winter. And most years, well, about 300,000 people or more travel this line. Well, this is our stop, Goathland, and you may of course recognise this place as the fictional village Aidensfield in the ITV series Heartbeat, or also as Hogsmeade Station in the Harry Potter films. About a mile from here, the valley drops 300 foot into Beck Hole, and that posed a few problems for the early engineers, but they came up with an ingenious solution. A rope and pulley system would actually haul the trains up the incline, and that worked fine until 1864 when there was an accident, the rope snapped and 2 people were killed. So then they tried to work out and find a flatter route, so they blasted through the rocks. And shortly after that, steam engines came along which were powerful enough to cope with the incline. But anyway, let's go up the road and have a look at the village. There are no major towns in the North Yorkshire Moors National Park. Most of the communities are little villages like this, a cluster of houses, shops, a church and a pub gathered around a village green. So there's not much industry, there's not much farming as there was either. So most of the income in an area like this depends on tourism. And for Gothland that means Heartbeat, Harry Potter and the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. So days like today, glorious days like today, are absolutely vital for the people who live here and who try to make a living here. But if you want solitude and you want the peace and the space of the North Yorkshire Moors, all you've got to do is walk to the end of the village. At one time, the sea covered the whole of this area, and sandstone, limestone and ironstone strata were laid down. Then, 2 million years ago, during the Ice Age, glaciers and meltwater carved out the valleys. Perhaps the most spectacular geological feature is the Hole of Hawkham, a vast amphitheatre now crossed by the main road from Pickering to Whitby. It's a real switchback. This road remains the only route across the moors, although earlier the Romans built a road, Wade's Causeway, from their fort at Malton to the coast. You can still follow its route across Wheeldale Moor. After the Romans left, stone markers were erected across the moors. This one's called Fat Betty, and this Ralph Cross. Other high roads give superb views across the moors, like this one at Billsdale. The oldest remains found in the area are on the southern edge of the moors, and they're not human. They're bones of elephants, hippopotamus and rhinoceros some 70,000 years old. It's thought they were brought into the den near Kirkdale by hungry hyenas. Nearby is St Gregory's Minster. There is a sundial dating back to Saxon times. On either side of the sundial, the inscription translates as Orm, son of Gamelson, bought St Gregory's Minster when it was all broken and fallen down, and he let it be made new from the ground for Christ and St Gregory in the days of King Edward, in the days of Tosti the Earl. That dates between 1055 and 1065. An earlier church may have dated back as far as 750 AD. There's a church of similar age at Lastingham. This was built in 1078 on the site of a 7th century Celtic monastery. There was a Cistercian priory at Rosedale, but there are no remains left as the stone was used for building the village now known as Rosedale Abbey. In late March in Farndale, thousands of people come to walk alongside the River Dove between Low Mill and church houses to see the wild daffodils that are thought to have been introduced by the monks of Rydell Abbey. The abbey is on a secluded valley along which the River Rye flows. It was where the strict order of French Cistercian monks settled in 1132. It rivalled Fountains Abbey near Ripon for its riches, also founded on sheep and mining. But like all monasteries, it was dissolved by Henry VIII in 1539. Helmsley is 3 miles away from Rievaulx, and it was here that a castle was founded by Walter Especk in 1120, the man who gave the lands to found Rievaulx Abbey. Helmsley was given a borough charter in 1191. The recipient was Roger de Ross, an heir to Walter Especk, who died in 1135. The market remains at the town centre today. The monument in the centre is to William Duncombe, the 2nd Earl of Feversham, who lived at Duncombe Park just off the town centre. The Duncan family bought the lands from the heir of the de Ross family in 1689 and still own them today. The town is highly picturesque, with cottages and gardens lining Borough Beck. Although the moors are now mostly used for grazing sheep or shooting, once they were busy with lead mining and quarrying. Above Rosedale can be found these old iron ore mines. They were sunk in the mid-19th century and continued operational until the 1920s. The output was such that a railway had to be constructed to take the minerals down to the Esk Valley line. even though some was smelted in the kilns that can still be seen dotting the moorside. Old customs survive from this time. At Egton Bridge in 1800 the first Gooseberry Championship was held, as it has been every year since, and always on the first Tuesday in August. It's an exact and serious business, where just one grain may or may not mean being crowned champion of the year. Today, visitors come to the moors to see attractive villages like Hutton le Hole, where the Rydell Folk Museum is located on the village green, a Roman road, wayside crosses, a railway, and, of course, this. It's RAF Fylingdales, a radar station built to monitor any potential military threat to Britain or its allies. So, the North Yorkshire moors are a place of quiet country lanes, wide open moorland spaces, and an awful lot of history, but I think we should be getting back to the station. That sounds like our train. So here comes our train, time for us to get aboard again. Next stop, the coast.